Caitlin Clark didn't just enter the WNBA with hype, she entered with history on her shoulders. She was the most hyped player the league had ever seen. Record-breaking college career, national spotlight, a fan base that followed her from Iowa straight into the pros. She brought millions of eyes to the league, sold out arenas overnight, and became the face of women's basketball before she ever played a single WNBA possession. But with all that attention came something else: resentment. And worst of all, envy. Instead of being welcomed as a generational talent, Caitlin Clark has been met with hostility, on the court, off the court, and even in how the league responds to the way she's treated. We've seen flagrant fouls to the head, we've seen dead ball body checks, we've seen pokes to the eye, cheap shots in transition, and players going out of their way to send a message. And the message is clear: you're not wanted here. It's one thing to play tough, it's another to cross the line over and over again, with the officials swallowing the whistle and the league pretending it's all just part of the game. Because this isn't about initiation or adjustment. This is targeted aggression, fueled by jealousy, amplified by race, and tolerated by a system that refuses to hold anyone accountable for it. Through it all, Caitlin hasn't retaliated. She hasn't flopped, whined, or demanded special treatment. She takes the hits, helps her teammates up, and keeps her focus on the game. She speaks with maturity, leads with poise, and shows more professionalism than many veterans. But that doesn't make what's happening okay. In fact, it makes it worse, because the one person handling it the right way is the one being punished the most. What's happening to Caitlin Clark shouldn't be ignored, and in this video, we're going to show you exactly what she's dealing with, because the league can spin it however they want. But the footage doesn't lie. Before the season could even settle in, before the headlines had shifted from hype to gameplay, something happened that set the tone. Not with a foul, not with a block, but with a moment that felt heavier than any stat line. It wasn't broadcast on ESPN, it wasn't caught by a sideline reporter, it was quick, subtle, almost easy to miss. But when it hit social media, it lit a fuse. Because this wasn't about physical play, it wasn't about basketball at all.
Or the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
The reaction was instant. Viewers slowed it down and read the lips, rewatched it over and over again. The takeaway was clear and deeply uncomfortable. And the response? There wasn't one. No league statement or disciplinary action, just silence. This isn't about making mountains out of molehills, it's about consistency. If we're going to talk about building a league based on respect, inclusion, and progress, then moments like this matter. Because if the roles had been reversed, if the phrase had come from someone else and targeted someone different, there would have been press conferences, fines, and damage control. Instead, it was swept under the rug. Caitlin didn't acknowledge it publicly. She didn't feed the fire, she stayed focused, stayed silent, and kept playing. But to anyone paying attention, this was the moment that confirmed something deeper. This season wasn't going to be about basketball alone. There was going to be more behind the contact, more weight behind the stares, more meaning in every uncalled foul. And this moment? It set that foundation. There are certain plays that don't need slow motion to prove a point. You don't need a telestrator or a former ref breaking it down on a broadcast. You just need to watch it once, eyes open, full speed, and your gut tells you what's wrong. This next moment is one of those. It doesn't happen after a whistle. It's not behind the play. It happens right in front of the officials, the cameras, and everyone in the arena. And yet, no reaction. Nothing. This isn't the kind of thing that gets debated in a post-game interview. It's the kind of thing that leaves players shaking their heads and fans asking, what more does she have to go through? Caitlin doesn't flop, and she doesn't embellish contact. She's one of the few guards in the league who still tries to fight through defenders the old-school way, by staying upright, by powering through. But here's the problem with that. The refs stop rewarding it. The tougher you are, the less protection you seem to get. And no one's getting less protection than Caitlin Clark. And this isn't some isolated missed call. It's become a pattern, one that forces her to adapt, not just to opponents, but to officials who seem unwilling to call the game the same way when she's involved. So now the question isn't whether or not Caitlin is getting fouled. The question is how often the league is willing to pretend it didn't happen. Every play like this chips away at the integrity of the game, and it sends a message, not just to Caitlin, but to everyone watching. If this is how you treat the league's biggest star, What does that say about what you're willing to let slide? And more importantly, how long are we supposed to ignore it? In basketball, fouls happen. It's part of the game. You fight for position. You contest a shot. You get physical. And most of the time, players understand that it comes with the territory. But in this one, the reaction says more than the foul itself. Before you even hear a whistle, you see the frustration, the exaggerated arm gestures, and all from a routine play that happens dozens of times every night.
Rebecca Allen, too strong on a three. And look out, Caitlin Clark pushes Angel Reese, and Angel Reese gets right up into...
The player on the receiving end, Angel Reese. The foul? Nothing out of the ordinary. No hard contact, just a standard play. And yet, her reaction is loud and even intentional. Now contrast that with the way Caitlin Clark handles actual hard contact, shoulder checks, flagrant fouls, even full-on collisions. You rarely see her flinch. No theatrical complaints. She absorbs it, gets back in the play, and moves forward like it's just another possession. This moment with Reese became a flashpoint for fans, not because the foul was so dramatic, but because the double standard was so obvious. The same players who aggressively defend Caitlin, throw elbows, and bump her on dead balls suddenly want a whistle when someone breathes on them. And even more telling, the officials responded, the whistle blew. Meanwhile, when Caitlin gets leveled, play on. This isn't about whether Angel Reese is allowed to react, it's about why Caitlin Clark isn't given the same grace or the same protection. Because if we're going to talk about toughness, let's be honest about who's showing it. After Caitlin Clark was assessed a flagrant foul for what anyone with eyes could see was standard defensive contact, no elbow, no push, no dangerous follow-through, Angel Reese was asked what she thought about it, and her response said everything.
Basketball player, refs got it right. Move on.
No nuance, just a cold endorsement of a call that didn't make basketball sense and wouldn't have been made for nearly anyone else. This wasn't the kind of foul that stops a game. It was the kind of contact that usually earns free throws at most. But for Caitlin, it became something bigger, something penalized, reviewed, and flagged. And instead of calling that out for what it was, an overreaction, Reese used it as an opportunity to double down and validate the narrative that Caitlin deserves this kind of treatment. It's worth repeating. The same league that has waved off legitimate fouls committed against Caitlin now has no problem turning minor contact by her into major punishments. And when Angel, who plays with physicality, who throws elbows, who's had her own fouls upgraded, says the refs got it right, that's not just a quote. That's a public signal that when Caitlin's on the floor, different rules apply. Reese didn't have to back the refs. She could have stayed neutral. She could have said it was a judgment call. But she didn't. Because there's a comfort now in watching Caitlin get punished. A culture being built around targeting her and acting like it's just part of the game. This isn't physical basketball. This is reputation warfare. Because when even your cleanest plays are being flagged and your opponents feel emboldened to support those calls with zero pushback, it's not about fouls anymore. It's about erasing the margin of error, making Caitlin play perfectly just to be treated normally. That quote from Reese wasn't about one play, and everyone heard it loud and clear. By this point, the pattern is obvious. Caitlin Clark isn't just getting bumped or challenged, she's being baited. Opponents aren't just playing her hard, they're going out of their way to test her limits to see how far they can go before the whistle blows. But this time, the play doesn't involve the ball. It's not a battle for position. It's not even part of the action. The cameras catch another instance of physicality, intentional and unnecessary, with Caitlin on the receiving end yet again.
There's a lot of bumping and chippiness at half court between Ryan Howard and Caitlin Clark. And last game,
there's nothing accidental about what happens here. The defender sees her, steps into her path, and initiates contact. Not in the middle of a scramble, not even during a box out. Just a straight-up hit, unprompted and completely unnecessary. And what do the officials do? This has nothing to do with rookie treatment. Caitlin's not a rookie anymore. She's in her second year. She's adjusted to the pace, knows the system, and has shown she can handle physical defense. But what she's dealing with isn't basketball. It's a campaign. Opponents are testing how many times they can body her, how many times they can go chest to chest without getting whistled. And the scariest part? They're starting to realize they'll get away with it. But Caitlin doesn't take the bait. She doesn't react emotionally, doesn't escalate. She takes the contact, regroups, and gets into the next play. The league says it wants professionalism, It says it wants stars who carry themselves with class. But when it has one, it turns a blind eye while she's physically targeted night after night. There's no memo, no statement, no public support, just another hit, another non-call, and another shrug from the people in charge. If this exact clip happened to a different player, it would be a technical. If it happened to Caitlin again next game, odds are it'll be ignored just the same. Caitlin Clark doesn't just play through contact, she's forced to. On most nights, she doesn't get the luxury of relying on the whistle. She's expected to drive into traffic, take hits, and keep playing like nothing happened. That expectation doesn't apply equally across the league, but for her, it's become the rule. This next example starts like any other play. Caitlin gets the ball, makes her move, and drives with purpose, but watch what happens next. There's clear contact, arms swiping across her body, a defender bumping into her side, physical disruption as she goes up for the shot. Every frame confirms what viewers could see in real time. It was a foul, but no whistle. The game just moves on. And once again, Caitlin doesn't stop to plead her case. She doesn't yell at the official. She runs back on defense, even as her head coach stares in disbelief and the bench leans forward, waiting for the replay. This is what makes her treatment different. Because when other players, even stars, draw contact like this, the call usually comes immediately. It's expected. But when Caitlin is involved, the standard shifts. Suddenly, the same plays that trigger whistles for others become unclear decisions. Suddenly, the contact isn't enough. What's developing here isn't just a bad call, it's a dangerous precedent. Officials are setting a tone where opponents feel emboldened to hit Caitlin harder, more often, and with less fear of consequence. And make no mistake, players notice. Everyone knows who gets the calls in this league and who doesn't. The problem isn't just that she didn't get this one. The problem is that no one was surprised when she didn't. There's physical defense, and then there's everything else. Trash talk, hard fouls, off-ball bumping, none of that is new. But sometimes something happens that makes people stop what they're doing, rewind the clip, and ask, did that really just happen? This next sequence had no play developing, no screen being set, no drive being contested. It wasn't a live ball scramble or a box out under the rim, but it became one of the most talked about actions of the year.
It was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
The replay didn't require analysis. The intent was clear, and the fallout was instant. Fans, analysts, even former players couldn't believe what they were seeing, and yet, the on-court response was silence. Caitlin was left on the ground. No teammates stepped in. The referees didn't issue a flagrant in real time. It took a post-game review for the league to finally upgrade the foul. And while Caitlin got up without saying a word, Kennedy Carter's teammates were celebrating and laughing. Not only was there no remorse, they leaned into it. This wasn't defense. This was retaliation. For what exactly? For being the most watched player in the league? For not backing down? For taking the spotlight and keeping it? That hit confirmed what many already feared. Caitlin isn't just being defended hard. She's being hunted. One of the worst plays involving Caitlin Clark didn't come in a high-speed collision or a contested rebound. It happened on a drive to the basket, in full view of the referee, the fans, and the cameras. There was no question about what happened. No debate. You could freeze the frame at any point and see the same thing.
I believe to Angel Reese. Yep, across the head, and they will go to the monitor to review this one.
Direct contact to Caitlin's head. Angel Reese swung hard, and it landed. A full-on strike to the top of Caitlin's head as she tried to finish at the rim. It was ruled a flagrant one, not because of any guesswork, but because the evidence left no room for anything else. This wasn't a swipe at the ball. It wasn't an attempt to block the shot. It was a clear, direct, dangerous foul, and the kind of contact that could have ended in injury. Reese didn't check on her, didn't say a word afterward. And just like in previous games, Caitlin got up without flinching, took her free throws, and played on. No drama. But the clip tells the story for her. When people question whether Caitlin is overreacting to the way she's being treated, they should look at this. Because if this same play happened to someone else, it would have sparked league-wide backlash. But because it was Caitlin, it was just another replay, another clip to scroll past. There's a growing list of players who've hit her, shoved her, and fouled her with a level of contact that goes far beyond basketball. And the reaction is almost always the same. Shrug it off, say nothing, move on. But Caitlin never responds with cheap shots. She never escalates. She absorbs it all. And the league seems to expect her to. Caitlin Clark isn't asking for special treatment. But the least she should expect is to be allowed to move without being physically targeted. That shouldn't be a big ask in a professional league. And yet, plays like this keep happening. She's simply running. No ball, no screen, no setup. And then, with zero provocation, a defender runs in and initiates unnecessary contact. It's subtle, but intentional. These are the kinds of hits that don't show up in the box score. They're not headline-worthy, but they add up. Over a game and over a full season, and they all tell the same story. Every bump like this is a message: we're going to make everything harder for you. Not just when you shoot, and not just when you drive, but every time you move. And the worst part, no one says anything about it. No warning, no league memo. Just another play that quietly reinforces the idea that Caitlin is fair game. She's expected to play with poise while others chip away at her rhythm, her movement, her space. And no one in charge seems eager to do anything about it. Most players can handle physical defense. It's part of the game. You fight through screens, absorb bumps in the lane, even take the occasional hard foul. But there's a point where the contact becomes reckless, where it stops being tough defense and starts being dangerous.
With no whistle.
Caitlin Clark gets poked directly in the eye. It's not incidental or masked by another play. The defender's hand comes across her face and lands squarely. Her head snaps slightly. She steps back in visible discomfort, and yet again, no whistle, no stoppage, no recognition that this could have resulted in an eye injury. It's easy to forget how serious something like this can be. One wrong angle, 1 inch higher, and she's dealing with a scratched cornea, or worse, but the league treats it like a casual bump. Even as Caitlin blinks through the pain and tries to regain her focus, she doesn't make a scene. No complaints, just a quiet moment of recovery and back to the play. There's an expectation now that Caitlin can take anything, that she'll shake it off, walk it off, play through it. But no player, no matter how mentally tough, should have to absorb this level of disregard for their safety. Especially not the face of the league. It's one thing to get fouled, it's another thing entirely to get fouled consistently and watch the referees look the other way. The contact in this next clip isn't hidden. It's not borderline. It's not something that only shows up on replay. It's blatant.
Pick up Caitlin Clark from the second she touches the basketball. That's what Burton did there. All over Caitlin going inside. That's a foul.
Caitlin drives through the lane, takes a clear hit, body, arms, everything, and there's no whistle. None. And once again, she has to finish the play while absorbing contact that would have drawn a foul 9 times out of 10 for anyone else. Plays like this aren't about being soft or not wanting competition. They're about asking for the same standard. If you're going to call fouls on one end, call them on the other. If you're going to reward aggressive play, don't punish Caitlin for being strong enough to play through it. And yet, this continues. Game after game, she gets bumped, grabbed, hacked, and has to pretend it didn't happen. There's no protection, no accountability, just the expectation that Caitlin will deal with it. Because she always does. But just because she doesn't fall over or yell doesn't mean she's not getting fouled. It just means she's disciplined enough not to make it the storyline. When a shooter rises up for a jumper, there's a simple rule. Don't land under them. Don't invade their space. Don't give them a reason to fear injury. It's one of the most emphasized safety rules in all of basketball, because one wrong landing can cost someone their season. That's why this play is so frustrating.
Here's Clark, 3 to shoot. Gonna have to hoist from the logo, an air ball, and Clark wanted.
Caitlin pulls up for a clean jumper. The defender closes out too hard, lands under her space, and bumps her midair. Her momentum shifts, she lands awkwardly, and still, no call. Everyone in the arena saw it. The bench reacts, but the refs stay silent. This isn't just a foul. It's the kind of play that every rule book is supposed to eliminate. The kind of action that has ended careers. And it's not being called. The message couldn't be clearer. Caitlin Clark is not getting the same level of protection that every other star gets. She's leading the league in jersey sales. She's driving ratings and packing arenas in every city. And yet, when she jumps for a shot, she doesn't even get basic landing space. What more does she have to earn? You can measure greatness in points, assists, or highlights, but sometimes the most telling stat is what a player has to endure and how they respond to it. Caitlin Clark has been elbowed, shoved, poked, shoulder-checked, tackled, and disrespected in ways few players ever are, especially in their second year. She's dealt with physical targeting, double standards from officials, and silence from the league meant to protect her. And through it all, she keeps showing up. She keeps hitting logo threes and keeps moving without the ball. She keeps taking contact without reacting. She keeps elevating her team while carrying a spotlight bigger than the WNBA has ever seen. Some will say she gets too much attention, others say she hasn't earned respect. But what's becoming clearer with every game, every hit, and every no-call is that she's playing through more than just defenders. She's playing through hate and through jealousy, even through the officiating, and she's not asking for anything extra, just a fair game. But maybe the most impressive thing about Caitlin Clark is that even when the game's not fair, she keeps finding ways to win anyway.